There's a very big Japanese round of applause. I know you're all excited, just as I am. I think we were introduced as 5 experts. I am not the expert, but I'm very excited to be speaking to you 4 gentlemen. So I'm going to start with you, Gary. If you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Liu. Based on the MC intros, I think I'm supposed to be the Harvard economist, which is completely not true. I barely graduated from that university. I run a company called Terminal 3. We are Hong Kong-based. We are an infrastructure company that works in identity. So we use cryptography to allow for identity to be verified anywhere in the world without privacy and security issues to your underlying data. Increasingly, our technology is being used to secure AI agents and make sure that they are not pretending to be somebody else, and more importantly, that they are not mishandling private information for enterprises and individuals.
Navjit.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Navjit Dhaliwal. I'm the founder and CEO of Iagon. We were founded in 2017. We're based out of Switzerland. We started in Norway. We have a team of about 32 people. We work on something called, I like to explain it as the Airbnb for storage and compute. We have a marketplace. We connect storage providers with end users, and our focus is mainly on privacy, sovereignty of data storage, and security.
Kazuma.
Okay, hey everyone, my name is Kazuma and I'm with Relic. We are a P2P Pokemon card and any other collectible trading platform, and security is one of the biggest thing for us because there are so many fraudulent cards that are being sold online, especially on places such as eBay and Mercari. And we actually do grading a lot, and we ensure that the customer are buying the authentic card from us. So yeah, thank you.
Jock.
Hey everyone, I'm Jock. I'm one of the co-founders of Hashlock, and we're one of the world's fastest growing Web3 cybersecurity firms.
And I'm Jason Sheman. I've been with Bitcoin.com for almost 9 years. I actually used to be based out of Tokyo from the age of 22. So this was my home. Very excited to be back here and talking about what is actually somewhat of a topical issue. I was introduced as an expert on this. I'm far from that. But I'd like to hear from you gentlemen more about what is this problem and how much of it a problem is. And actually, Navjit, I'm going to go to you first here. And maybe if you could let us know, like, what is the thing that we're trying to solve for here? What is something that's not being discussed right now that maybe the people here should be concerned about?
I think the biggest problem with sovereign identity is sovereign data, you controlling your own data. And it's a big issue these days, as you know, that we've had data leaks all around the world. We give up privacy on the fly. We sign up to all these websites, and we have a big, a presence on internet, right? So I think that we're oblivious. Some of us are oblivious to that. Like, this is a big thing that you're giving up, and a lot of the websites and these social media apps, they're making money off of your identity, right? Now, what we're trying to do is accomplish, and this problem is to secure and make data more sovereign, so you control your own data. And I think that's the biggest problem in that sovereign identity that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, I think, like, is there anybody else that wants to take this as well? Like, how concerned should the people in the crowd be about this if they haven't already thought about, their data and self-sovereignty?
Yeah, for sure. I think we're way too reliant on these massive centralized platforms. At least, for example, in Australia, there's been quite a lot of hacks in regards to these big platforms where, let's say, if you sign up for insurance, you need to hand over a photo of your ID. If you sign up for your phone bill, photo of your ID. And then if one of these platforms gets hacked, there's a copy of your ID that then goes on the dark web and can be used to hack you in the future. Whereas I feel like we have these systems in place where we are building these technology stacks in which you can own your data and only show it visibly to these platforms. But I think we just need to push for more adoption of these decentralized platforms that allow that, so these hacks can stop happening.
Actually, Jock, I'm going to throw it back at you here. So what is right now the most common failure point that you see with the platforms that people here are currently entrusting with their data?
I think one of the most common things is not building for security in the first place. A lot of the time, everyone here is trying to innovate and build something really cool and really useful, and sometimes security can be an afterthought, and that's what we see leads to a lot of hacks, vulnerabilities, and exploits. I think number one is make sure that you have a third-party security team. One of the things that we always say is you're not allowed to check your own homework. So make sure there's an external third-party team that checks over everything. That's going to come with an offensive mindset looking at security and ensuring that we find everything. In regards to HashLock, we've never audited a project and not found one high vulnerability, which a high vulnerability means that we could essentially extract funds from that platform or protocol. So I think that knowledge being public is pretty scary, but that's why we need to take security so seriously.
I'm going to just throw this to everybody on the stage here. Anyone can take this. But with like these potential hacks that you're talking about, in what ways now could they be used against the people in the crowd? And also piggybacking on that, how could it maybe be used in the future?
I can jump in here. Let's immediately dive into AI. We were talking about this in the green room, but the reality of the agentic world that we're stepping into has massively created exponential opportunity for security breaches that affect all of our lives. A single one of these centralized honeypots of personal data being hacked in the previous world, pre-AI agents, was already a bad enough problem, okay? But it still required a human being to then sell it to another human being, and then human corporations that are working with illicit data to then take advantage of it. So the actual impact of a data breach, the actual economic impact of a data breach is slow moving. With AI agents, it is instantaneous. Because AI agents, the moment they find a vulnerability in a honeypot of personal data, they take all that personal data and they can immediately farm it out to sub-agents, and you will have an army of AI agents pretending to be you and transacting on your name, potentially your image, your credit card, your address, your passport number, whatnot. And that's when we start to lose real money. And so it's not just corporations losing money through fines and economic breach, but individuals. We are losing our identity because we've been handing data to centralized honeypots for so many years that artificial intelligence now can take huge advantage of.
Actually, off of that, Kazuma, I'm going to ask you, because you deal with a peer-to-peer platform and it's retail focusing. So what do you do within your platform to protect users? And do you see users being savvy to some of these issues? Are people concerned about it? Or are they just willing to give up their data in order to try to make money quickly?
Sure, thank you for the question. So as you guys may already know, eBay or like Mercari or like Amazon, they all store personal data. They all have like I think they all have like a file of each individual users, and that can be like a super dangerous security breach point of failure. But here at Relic, we don't really have that. What we have is a non-KYC needed permissionless infrastructure, so anyone can purchase collectibles from us without needing to sell off their personal data, unless they want to have their physical cards shipped to them. They will have to give us like their address and their name. But other than that, what we usually do is like we usually trade the NFT version of the real physical card. So there is no really a lot of information that is needed to use our platform, and I think that's like a really strong point for us.
You mentioned NFT. I think like maybe with the term, there might be a little bit of exhaustion, especially at conferences such as this. I know that in the many different iterations of TEAMZ, there's been different cycles. One of which was NFTs maybe being sold to people for things where you didn't really need any kind of digital identity marker. So I guess for this, and I'm going to go back to you, Gary, for this particular problem, what do we not have right now that is required to solve it? And does that include Web3 or a blockchain?
I think we're obviously here on stage talking about this in Web3 context because we believe that Web3 technologies can solve this problem more effectively. But you don't need blockchain for these sovereign identity issues. There are options out there using cryptography off of centralized systems that can solve for many of the issues that are limiting sovereign control of data and sovereign control of identity. But blockchain technologies are a better solution. So there are a few types of decentralized technologies that I believe are really, really important infrastructure layers for us to hopefully in a couple of years come back to the stage and say, hey, we now do have control over our own data and we are not exposing it to security risks or massive corporation monetization. I'll give you three. The first is what IGON is doing, is decentralized storage. Right now, all of our data is stored on the cloud. And we've been led to believe that storage on Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud or Azure for Microsoft is extremely secure. It's the most secure place you can put your data. And it also is private, okay? Neither of those two things are true. As long as they're centralized, some company owns it. Amazon and Google will tell you it's the companies that are renting out server space that own it, but at the end of the day, actually Google and Amazon and Microsoft completely own your data. Their service can go down and your data is gone, you'll never be able to get it back. They can decide to trade that data at some point. We're just literally trusting these organizations that they don't, right? And of course, when it comes to security, we all know that cloud security is nowhere near where it needs to be. And it's very, very easy to human engineer entry into cloud services. Literally an intern could leave their laptop unlocked at a cafe while going to the bathroom, and somebody will be able to get access to your entire infrastructure for your company and extract all of that customer data off of centralized cloud. Decentralized storage solves most of, if not all of those security issues and privacy issues. The second layer that is extremely important is decentralized identity. Now, decentralized identity is actually not a new concept. Let's talk about passports. Passports are actually decentralized identity. Because we all carry our own passports, and in Japan, you have to carry it everywhere because if you want to buy anything tax-free, you have to present it. That's decentralized. We have a copy of it, but it is verified against centralized authority. And I do think that that is still going to be the future of digital identity, where we carry a version of our identity that is in our control, but then when somebody wants to prove that this identity claim is true, they probably still have to go to a centralized source like government databases. So decentralized identity, extremely important, right? And then finally, very quickly, the last layer we need is we're going to need some kind of decentralized verification. Literally a node system where a single node owned by a single company cannot pretend to be truth, but everyone has to come to some level of consensus that it's true. Because if you have decentralized identity and your data stored in decentralized servers, how can you know that these two things matched together is true, right? You still need a root of trust. And decentralized technologies provide a root of trust that everyone, or trustlessness, that everyone can agree on. So those three layers, very important.
So I know you're throwing it to a few people on the stage here, but I'm actually going to just pass this over to you, Jock, and kind of ask the same question. But basically, when Gary was talking about it helping from a security standpoint, do you believe that Web3 and blockchain are they the solution to make us more secure with respect to our identity? My main question being is like, these blockchains are all public, and especially with our transactions, this is a way to see like how people have used their money. So for me, it's a little bit hard to reconcile that this the public blockchain is going to be the thing that makes me inevitably more private.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with what Gary is saying, and on having that technology layer where there's a centralized identity, but also a proof system. We see people that are building like things that are very similar to that, where it's like a a decentralized identity with a ZK proof stack. And I think it's difficult because the issue, I don't think it isn't innovation in the technology. I think it's more so with the adoption, because we can build these really cool things, but a lot of the time I feel like we're building within a bubble for users of the system already, whereas not building for more adoption, because you can have a lot of the time, even in regards to marketing, a really cool, innovative product, but if no one knows it exists or no one knows how to use it, then no one is going to adopt it. And I know it sounds counterintuitive with having a blockchain that's a public ledger of everything going on within the tech, but because we can encrypt it and hide it, and essentially, although you can see everything, a lot of the time you can't interpret it, which is what I think makes it so cool. What I think is that we don't need to blockchain everything. That's what we see an issue happening with developers a lot of the time. If you don't need to make it Web3, then don't, because that's going to affect certain aspects of adoption. But I think at the moment with blockchain technology, it is the only way that we can truly own and prove something that is digital.
So you talked about, I guess, usability there. So maybe I'll start with you, Kazuma, and then Navjit. I'm going to have you follow up on this as well, and anybody else on the stage can take this. But why isn't this being used right now? Is it an incentives issue? Is it a lack of awareness? Is it UX? So like why isn't it being used? Why people don't care?
You mean like the private blockchains?
I mean, why aren't we seeing more push for people to, I guess, have self-sovereignty, digital solutions? Why isn't it a concern? Maybe I just speak on behalf of myself, but like up until recently, I was not as concerned as like now that I've been doing a little bit of research for this panel. And I think as we were talking behind stage, just with how quick AI is moving and how my identity could be used in nefarious ways, I'm just wondering like why the general populace maybe isn't concerned. However you feel about that, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, so I was just, watching the news about like Christy Noem's husband, and what I think is like people haven't been hit hard enough for them to care about these kind of issues. But if they have been like hit hard enough, they will care about these issues. Maybe the security breaches haven't happened to them yet.
Again, like I don't know like the audience and how sophisticated they are, but in what ways could they be hit such that it would be painful for them?
For example, for like the Japanese audience, we all purchase things on Amazon Japan, right? Who haven't bought some like shady stuff on Amazon Japan? What would you feel like if those like shopping lists of you going around to like I don't know Twitter or Facebook? How would you feel if your friends have seen those, right? So I think like those kind of data breaches obviously haven't happened yet, but if those things inevitably happens, people are definitely going to care. Maybe it's a niche sort of sector now for the privacy and sovereign entity, but I think in the future it's definitely going to be a trend.
Navjit, I'll let you take this, but is there financial risk for people in the audience as well with respect to their identity?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anyone can steal data and use that data to their benefit, right? So we see data leaks all the time, with governments, big companies, with healthcare. So data breaches do happen. People are becoming a little bit more aware of that. So there are people that want to learn a little bit about privacy and do a little bit better in terms of their growth on the internet, on their profile on the internet. So they're taking steps to forgo that. I think that the adoption is coming. So there are enterprises. Our enterprises are leading that adoption, in my opinion. Like we're working with, for example, Worth Group, which is a $20 billion euro company in Europe, and they want to monetize IP for 3D parts. And it's completely different, relevant. It's not to do with sensitive data, but it's sensitive for the companies, meaning that for them, it's a revenue vehicle, right? They don't want to share their IP with just anyone. So they need solutions like this to protect their IP in order to monetize it. And with Worth Group, we were able to do that. And the more people, other problem is the UX, right? With blockchain comes a lot of problems as well, where you're faced with new features that people are not familiar with, right? Why we use centralized solutions today, like Google Cloud, iCloud, because we don't think about it. We just use it, right? And this is where we need to get to as in Web3 to be able to provide platforms that are very easy and simple to use, that you don't really think about you're using blockchain or using something that's holding your identity, that is distributed, decentralized, and yours, right?
Gary, same question to you there.
Yeah, a simple answer. For the first 16 years of blockchain, it was a retail technology. And if it's a retail technology, there's two things that it needs to do for retail adoption. One, it needs to either save people money or make them money, so it's a money thing. Or two, it needs to be magical. And blockchain was neither of those two things for the vast majority of the world. Yes, people made money off of it, but a very small group of people made a load of money off of it. Most other people around the world that adopted it did not make money, probably lost money. And two, there was no magic experience with blockchain. It was cumbersome. The user experience was worse than centralized Web 2. And so, of course, retail adoption never came. Why am I excited now? Exactly to Nav's point. In the last 2 years, blockchain has transitioned to become an institutional enterprise technology because regulations are coming, because companies, large companies all over the world, governments as well, are starting to adopt this technology, and there are now rules around what institutional capital flow through these pipes can actually look like. And when institutions come into play, the money follows it, the actual magical use cases follow it, and I think the adoption on the retail side will also follow soon. So this stuff that we're talking about right now has always been relevant, but even more important now that institutions are getting involved.
You could probably go a few different ways with that as well, I think, when talking about agents and giving them access to data and what you could do. Mr. David Sensel was talking to Satsu earlier, very great conversation. Hopefully people can catch it, or they were here. I think we're going to be wrapping up relatively soon. I'd like to give everybody a chance to kind of talk about what they see in the future here. I'd love it if you could make it relevant to the people in the crowd. So I'm going to start with you, Jock, and what's the one thing that maybe doesn't exist today that you imagine 3 to 5, like we could even say 5 to 10 years from now, that maybe people here will be using to protect themselves, or maybe where is like a risk that they should be, what is something that maybe they could do today as well? So maybe some forward-facing statements to wrap things up would be great.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think, great question. I think there will be more adoption. I agree with what's been said here on the panel today. And in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see that. Back in, let's say, the 80s, 90s, to use the internet, you might have had to be pretty native to technology, maybe know a bit of data networking. I feel like that's where we're at today in some aspects of Web3 technology. If you're not super crypto native and you just dive in head first, there's a good chance that you're going to get wrecked at some point and maybe lose some funds. So it's an adoption issue, it's a UI UX issue, but as we see more progression, more innovation, more building, you don't need to know that there is blockchain tech underlying a new cool app that everyone's using to transfer money from A to B. You might just open your banking app one day, you see dollar figures, you send it to your friend, you pay a bill. That could be all blockchain infrastructure. Overnight, there's a switch, and you don't know that the technology stack has changed. So I think we're going to see that. I've even seen in regards to like people building and coming to us for security, that some people are building these really cool tech stacks, and they're not even telling people that it is Web3 or blockchain, and you wouldn't know unless you looked under the hood. So maybe that's where we're heading, where it's less about the tech and more about the utility, and I think that's a cool place to head.
Same question to you, Kazuma. Are people going to be using tools here that's going to be protecting them, or should they be concerned that their data is going to be exploited over this time?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I just want to say I agree with everyone's points here. Like the most pain in the ass kind of problem right now is that crypto is still hard to use. We still have to use like a wallet extension to interact with all the dApps and the protocols. I think like maybe in the future, like AA wallet is definitely gonna be a trend, because you don't really have to know like all the blockchains that you interact with to know that you're doing the transaction that you're wishing to do. And I think like blockchain is just such a much more efficient way to move money from point A to point B. But yeah, like AA wallets nowadays are still lacking in like I think UX wise, and I hope in the future that we can see a lot of more efficient and more user-friendly AA wallets.
Navjit, I think you got a minute here. Do we need to be concerned about where our data is being stored in this time, or are we safe? Are we in good hands? What are you going to do for us?
100% we should be concerned. And I'm afraid, gloom and doom for a lot of people in here is the regulations and the compliance. And a lot of governments are heading in the wrong direction in terms of AI surveillance, in my opinion. So we should be more proactive in talking to community groups and also our government, local government, in pushing in a certain direction and protecting our privacy. So these tools that are up here that really can help improve the privacy and data sovereignty.
Gary, go for it.
Yeah, very quickly, 2 trends. Number one, I think everyone in this room within the next 3 years is going to have an army of AI agents performing tasks on your behalf, and it is going to be another one of those magical experiences of technology. What you don't know underlying that is going to be decentralized technologies and blockchains. These AI agents are going to be transacting with one another using stablecoins that are on blockchain. They're going to be proving identity and their authorization off of decentralized systems of trust as well. And then the second thing, which you might not believe, but I truly believe in the next few years, everyone here is going to have a digital or decentralized identity that is from the government. Governments in Asia in particular, including here in Japan, are experimenting very, very fast because they believe it is a national security issue now. And so governments are going to be adopting the technology we're talking about for all of your privacy and security and safety as well.
These are great points. The great thing about Japanese people that I know is that they're the last to add their profile picture to anything. So I think from that standpoint, they're going to be quite safe in the new future. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's very informative. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.